Hello, in this video I will talk about nested clusters, how to use them and how to demolish them. And this first example I have a couple of tubes. In this case I have just one mesh. It's set object type set to mesh. There's also a cube, kinematic cube under it. And in this case I've pre-fragmented the same cube, created FBX asset with fragments. So this is, as you can see, just an empty root with RayFire component set to nested cluster and a bunch of fragments as children. And nested cluster takes into account not only first um, kind of layer of children, but every object which mesh component will be considered as its children, as a child. So now let me simulate this object so you will see the difference. And as you may know, Unity dynamic object can use only convex mesh collider. So when I will initialize this object, you see it doesn't, it creates this collider, mesh collider, which using the same mesh, but since it can simulate only convex uh, colliders, as you can see, you cannot simulate this cube, so it will pass through this tube. And in this case, I will initialize, and you can see now that this empty root with RayFire component, it get collider, mesh collider for every fragment, a lot of colliders. And in this case, it allows you to simulate kind of concave objects. So this is the first useful feature for using for clusters. And as you can see, I can move this cube, and it will also push this tube. And as you can see, now this tube simulates one solid object. And since I have demolition type set to none, it cannot be demolished right now. But this is the first benefit of using clusters in case you want to simulate several uh, objects as one. Of course, you can do this manually, creating all these mesh colliders and applying all these meshes, but well, you can do the same just using this rigid component and cluster object type. And next, my example, I am going to demolish cluster, and I will use these chairs for this. So here my chair example. As you can see, it has this top group of objects with a bunch of cubes, and this bottom part, which also has some cubes. So this, what I'm calling a nest, just this is the first nest, and this is the second nest, and this is why it's actually called nested cluster. So in this case, using creating all these nests, you can kind of design how you want your object to be demolished. So when it will be demolished, first it will fall apart to the top and bottom parts, and then you can demolish them further. So in this case, I set its depth level to 1, which means I only want to demolish this chair to these two parts. Now let's see how it looks like. You can see that now it was demolished. And I cannot demolish it even more. Now these two parts will be simulated as one solid object. Well, this is what will happen if you define here as depth level 1. But for this reference, I set my depth level to 0, which means I want to demolish it without any depth limitations. So let me initialize it. Okay, now you can see that it was demolished to these two pieces, and then a few moments later, actually, let me drop it from this height. Okay, now see that it was demolished to top and bottom pieces, but after that, this bottom piece also was demolished, and now every mesh finally was separated to its now it has this mesh object type. It's not a cluster anymore, and you can simulate every cube separately. So we can start a group of objects as one cluster and then demolish it step by step into separate fragments. And as you can see in this cluster demolition option, even though I have def level 0, which means it not should consider def property, as you can see, mesh says here none. This is because here I have a mesh demolition property turned off, which means that when it will demolish all cluster and end up with simple fragments, it will not apply. It will make them undemolishable. It will set demolition type to none. So you shouldn't worry about uh, simple fragments being demolished further, even though your def level is 0 now. So you can be sure that you will break your cluster to deepest level possible, but objects, simple mesh objects won't be demolished anymore. But in this example here, I set my def level, my def limitation def to 3, which means I want to break all the nests, and also I want to break every cube one time. And here also I turned on this mesh demolition property on, so let's see how it works. So now it was demolished to, this is the first demolition layer. Now I'm going to demolish it to fragments. Now you can see they have demolition type runtime, and it's still possible to demolish every cube one more time, and some of them also already were demolished. Well, this is how you can demolish your clusters and then start breaking actual meshes in case you want to use runtime demolition for meshes. But again, you can set def level for your cluster like 4, and then every fragment also will be possible to fragment further. And this is just another example of a more complex object. As you can see, this column has also this bottom nest and upper nest, and then every nest also has several a couple of nests. So this bottom part has this small nest and this small nest, and top part also provides a couple of nests here. So this one and this one, and again I will set here my def level to 3, but my mesh demolition is off, so I'm not going to demolish any fragments. I only want to break this cluster to its deepest level, so maybe it's reasonable to set it to 0. So now you see it was demolished to these two nests. So now let it fall. Actually, it's not the one to fall down. Let's help it. And now you can see that it was demolished to other two nests, but because of this concave fragment, this convex shapes just stick together, it still simulates as one solid object. Let me move it. Uh, let's increase the volume of this rock so it will hit it harder. Well, yeah, you see, they they stay so tight because of all of these convex mesh colliders. So it's actually a good thing. It looks much more believable. And also this two nest also was demolished. But again, if I will let me hit it again one more time. Now you can see this part was demolished to fragments. And well, actually I can do the same for this part. So this is a way to use nested clusters and the way to simulate them and demolish them. Thank you for watching.